Join me as I collect my new Kia Niro. The entrance is just beyond this petrol pump on the left. I purchased it from the Kia dealership at Kidderminster.
Typical garages, there's absolutely nowhere to park, is there?
The first electric vehicle was invented by a Hungarian priest and physicist in 1828. He invented an electric motor and a car. It is almost 200 years ago. Our old diesel car had to be replaced. Our choice was another diesel or petrol car, or do we take the plunge and go for an electric vehicle? If we chose petrol or diesel, in addition to the upfront costs, there'd be annual running costs of over £2,000 a year. Looking for Gino?
Gino that's his desk, it shouldn't be too long, folks.
Well, off to find our car. Having experienced my brother's electric vehicle with 2 years of history, I knew electric vehicle running costs were a fraction of this. We looked at a Nissan Leaf or a VW ID3 or 4. We looked at the possibility of a second-hand Tesla. And finally we looked at a Kia Niro, which actually won out. The factors in the Kia's favour was the 7-year warranty, the excellent reviews. It had a range of over 200 miles, book range of some 280, practical range of some 250 miles. The elusive Gino.
How are you?
Yeah, good.
Nice to see you. Nice to meet you. Find the car in the car park, lock one of the doors. Kia Connect, it's called.
Kia Connect in the Android store.
Correct, yeah. If you download that, it's free to download, and then you just have to set up an account, and I can pair it that way with the car as well for you.
Yep.
What I'd usually do is show you around the car. So I've got a full charge in the car, okay. Under perfect weather conditions, on paper it states 282, so 267 is what's showing today.
In 1859, the first rechargeable batteries were invented. The first commercial electric vehicle was launched some 30 years later in 1884. That's almost 140 years ago.
Where would you shove the key if you need to get in?
So there's a plastic locator, pop the key in and that flicks off.
Oh, right.
Okay. Let me show you under the front. So here obviously you can put your fast charging cable. You might struggle to get the emergency charge plug in there as well. You might get it in if the bag's not in there, okay? So there's an emergency charge cable as well, a 3-pin plug.
Okay.
So if you went to, like, say, I don't know, on holiday, a cabin, you could do it off a 3-pin plug. They advise not to put extension cable, but I always did, just a 5 metre on the floor. It'll never catch fire, so on and so forth. So if you go into like your free charge points at like Tescos and Lidl, you'd always need to plug it in. This will take a maximum of 11 kilowatts, so some of those machines go up to 22 kilowatts, and that's AC, alternating current. You go to a fast charger, which this will take up to 72 kilowatts, so you can plug it to a 100 machine or a 300 kilowatt machine. It's not worth it because you will never get all that charge and you'll pay a lot more money for it. But then you'll get 10 to 80% in about 42 minutes. Okay? That is the 12 volt battery, but obviously you get 12 months breakdown cover for the RAC with Kia anyway. You've got your towing hook in the glove box, look.
Okay.
And there's your service book. Now we've also got Kia Charge, okay? So I think currently there's something like 30 different charge providers. So Kia try and mitigate the issues that people might have.
Yeah, I've downloaded Zapman.
Okay, yeah, that's what I used personally.
Yeah, that's what you
But
said.
this is like very
Do you
similar
have
to
electric
that.
car?
The wife's got electric Golf.
I'm
An
impressed.
e-Golf. Yeah, yeah.
Not a Kia.
We can't afford that. Yeah, we had to have a second-hand one, which is 2018, you see.
Yeah, well done, well done.
I love them, to be honest. You want to fold the back seats down, there's just a clip either side.
In 1897, electric battery-powered taxis were introduced in London by Walter Bursey, who designed a fleet of cabs. They were nicknamed the Hummingbirds due to the idiosyncratic humming noise they made.
So, what they've done now, you used to have like a rigid parcel shelf, but it doesn't have to get in the way if you're transporting stuff going travelling. You've got a twin level boot floor. And this is like a pop-up tent now. Do you want me to get it out for you?
Yeah, I'd love to. Continuing with the early history of the electric vehicle, I was unaware that electric vehicles held many speed and distance records. Amongst the most notable of these records was the breaking of the 100 kilometers per hour or 62 miles per hour speed barrier, and that was done in April 1899. Quite impressive, isn't it?
Yeah, very handy.
And then obviously these just go onto here, look. And there's your 3-pin emergency charge cable, which they say.
Okay, brilliant.
They don't come with a spare wheeler standard, which most cars don't. It's also to do with weight saving. Don't think the accessory's on there just yet, but you'll be able to get a space saving spare wheel, because you see all that comes out and you'll get a different foam insert with a flatter space saving spare wheel if you want one at a later date.
And what would that cost roughly, do you know?
Roughly about £300 for the kit. I don't know, it's quite big, isn't it? I didn't even get in there. Okay. I'm going to jump in, I'll talk you through the controls.
Okay.
Keyless start, so just have the key on your person.
Yeah.
Okay.
I also find it interesting to read that the English inventor Thomas Parker, who was responsible for electrifying the London Underground and overhead tramways in Liverpool and Birmingham in the late 1800s, was concerned about the malign effects of smoke and pollution were having on London. So even before the petrol or diesel combustion engine took off, people were concerned about the effects on pollution.
These haven't got an inbuilt sat nav, but Google Maps is better.
It does it wirelessly through Bluetooth.
It does it wirelessly, yes. It's very good. If not, then we've got all the menus here. Look, so we've got an EV button. It tells you obviously got 100% energy, fuel economy settings, and EV settings, etc. Here, look.
In the early 1900s, the electric vehicles had a number of advantages over their competitors. They did not have the vibration, smell and noise associated with gasoline cars. They also did not require gear changes. The cars were preferred because they did not require a manual crank handle to start them, as did gasoline vehicles. So that's the thing you need to watch, isn't it, for your fuel?
Correct.
In the 1900s, electric vehicles were often marketed as luxury cars for women, which may have generated a stigma among male consumers. Sales of electric cars peaked in the early 1910s. So this is the first time I've driven an electric car, and obviously this Kia Niro EV2. And how do I find it? It's very easy, very simple. Put it into drive. The accelerator pedal is everything really. I've set the regenerative braking probably to maximum because that gives me really good control. I don't even need to take my foot off the accelerator pedal, as we call it in the old cars. Other than that, there are lots of other gadgets you can do on it. You can set on the car, and I've started simply to begin with, just by learning how to drive it, put it into gear and how to power it down. By the 1920s, the electric car began to lose its position in the automobile market. A number of developments contributed to this situation. An improved road structure, improved travel times, creating a need for vehicles with greater range than those offered by electric cars. Worldwide discoveries of large petroleum reserves led to the wide availability of affordable gasoline, making petrol and diesel-powered cars cheaper to operate over longer distances. The price of a similar electric vehicle continued to rise. By 1912, an electric car sold at almost double the price of either petrol or diesel vehicle. That's us driven now to service station, and the thing I benefited from was looking at YouTube before I went to the sales showroom to collect the car, because that gave me some idea of the controls, and that was a big plus as well, because there's a whole range of things you can do, as you can expect, but being able to see it first before we went was a big benefit. What I absolutely love about the car is that you can control it all with the foot pedal. Just one pedal, you can slow down and accelerate, and I put the regenerative braking on maximum, and that gives me, in my opinion, the best control, because every bit of energy goes back into the battery, and I think that is brilliant. Would you believe there were over 300 listed electric car manufacturers in the United States in 1942? World War II and fuel-starved European countries experimented with electric cars, such as the British milk floats that many of us knew so well. The milkman would go door to door in the early hours delivering his milk on an electric vehicle. So my conclusion at the end of the first drive is I'm loving it. There's a lot more to learn and all the settings and everything else, but my first, I don't know how many miles it is, I've driven 70 miles or something like that, but I would give it very high marks. Yeah, these are quite little fancy things, aren't they?
Mm. Oh, I see.
Having successfully navigated my way to my house and home, I'm now starting to look at the various bits and pieces that have arrived with the car. And I've glanced through this Kia Niro owner's manual, and I'm very impressed with it. It's got loads of photographs and illustrations to help me understand it. Do is go and sit in the car and work my way through the manual to try and understand how it all works and get a better understanding of all the different controls. Yeah, I'm impressed with this manual. It looks thorough, it looks well written, well illustrated. I'm sure it'll be easy to use. We have to remind ourselves that it was an electric vehicle that received the unique distinction of becoming the first manned vehicle to drive on the moon on the 31st of July 1971. I just turned up without even checking, and that was a bit of a... My next task is to understand the charging of the vehicle. I need to understand how full the battery is and the charging options, and so this is me going in now to have a look at the charging options on the car. Then I'm just going to look just so I understand the screen and what it's telling me. The screen tells me there's 192 miles, which is a very useful and easy way of reading the range, rather like a fuel gauge. Well, it isn't a fuel gauge, but it's obviously an electric car. To the left here we've got the main panel, and EV is electric vehicle, I presume, so I press that and wait a second or so and it switches over, and there it gives me the electric vehicle, energy information, fuel economy, EV settings, charge management. So let's just go on that. So I press that again and it's now telling me the range, how full the battery is, and if I go to DC fast charge or AC station, how long it'll take. So if I press on this, I know the manual tells me that to get maximum use from the battery, I should be running the battery at 80%. Let me just read you exactly what the manual says. The manual tells me AC charging is recommended to keep the high voltage battery in optimal condition. If the HV battery, that's the main battery, is only charged to 80%, and you minimize the number of DC fast charge, you can keep the HV battery performance in optimal condition. So really what it's telling me is try not to use DC fast charge, and that should be fine because most of my drives will be from home. Occasionally I'll go on longer distances, and it says only charge to 80%. And so what I'm going to do now is set the thing to 80%. So having read that in the manual, I can go to here to the fast charge, or let me just cancel that, fast charge, press on here, and I can actually set the limit. So if I take that down to 80% and OK, that tells me I can now do 80%, will give me 215 miles, which is plenty, because in reality, I'm not going to drive 215 miles without a break for a pee or a cup of coffee or whatever, so that makes sense. So I may as well set both of these to this, so I'm going to press that again here and just take that down to 80% and click OK, and that's them both set to 80% charge, etc. So that's building in one of the recommendations for trying to prolong the battery life. The other bit of information I noticed, it says if the vehicle is kept with insufficient charge for a long period, it may damage the high voltage battery. Yeah, the manual is actually full of warnings about if you use the DC charge. Use of DC charge should be minimized in order to help prolong the high voltage battery. Lots of warnings about using the DC charge. Battery performance and durability can deteriorate if the DC charger is used constantly. Well, we don't plan to do that, but it's Obviously DC charging is not the ideal way or the best form of charge. I see it says the portable charge can be used when AC charge or DC charge is not available by using household electricity. So it almost implies don't use it all the time, but it is available, and I know we've got cables for that in the car. It's a 3-pin plug, which means when you go to your friend's house or when you're staying overnight in a B&B, you can plug it in and get some charge. I thought this evening I'm going to try and charge the vehicle using the 13 amp socket and connection. Okay, AC charging will terminate when the defined battery charge level, including scheduled charging, has been reached. Okay, so what I've got to do is turn everything off, make sure it's in park, and which is what I've done here, and everything is in neutral, and what I then do is turn it off, ready for charging. So that's what I'm doing now. So the engine is off, it's parked and in neutral. We'll through this window, and what I'm going to do is open up the front here. So that's it there, and that's it showing it's all ready. And I just take that cover off there. That's it ready. You have to plug it in, and then you look at the adapter, which is this thing. So if I press this on, it goes up to one, held it 2 or 3 seconds, I think it said 8 amp. I want to take it to 10. Okay, that's set at 10 amp, so that should be okay. So that's it swinging from there. It's set at 10, which is 10 amps, and that goes out the window to the car. To plug it into the car, so remove the cover and then push it in. That's it. And if you open the door, it should have a plug on it, which it does here. It's telling me it's charging. Anyway, I'm charging. It tells me that I've got range for 50 miles, and the charge plug's on, and 2.2 kilowatts in there. Anyway, that's it. That's the start. Brilliant. After a couple of hours, I go out and check the progress of the charging. Is it working? And it tells me it is charging. So it's gone up to 24%. It's saying, okay, and that is my setting. I did put it to 50% charge. Okay, well, let's leave that running during the night. I was intrigued to know if the 3-pin plug would get hot, as I'd heard some people say. Logically, it should not, as it is a 10 amp current through a 13 amp setup. But let's see. If I feel it, there really isn't any warmth at all, you know, just probably slightly warmer than the wall, etc., but no heat at all. It's a very well armoured cable, and that all feels fine, and it's just charging away, so there's no issues with, in my opinion, of anything getting hot.
It's 20 to 8, and I'm just going to look at the charger and see where we are on it. I'm going to first of all check the charger in here, the connector, see what that tells me. Okay, it looks as though it stopped charging. Power's on, but the charge is off.
Now out to go and have a look at the car itself and see what that tells me. Hopefully it'll all be charged and everything shut down safely.
So here, yeah, it all, no lights flashing. They were flashing here last night, and that looks off. Now let me just go inside and let's just have a look and see what this tells us. Dashboard just tells me the door's open, and what I want to do is have a look at the charge. So put my foot on the brake, and I then press that, which turns the ignition on, and that comes up. So you're going to look at that, press the EV, and it's up to 50% charge. Wow, that's exactly what I was after. So I set it to 50%. I'm up to 50%. And that was quite easy. Okay, the mileage I can do now has gone up to 129 miles in the tank. So all well and good. I started that about 7:30 last night, and I think it said 9.5 hours, so it must have finished in the early hours. And it shows from 20% I was able to put a third more charge into the battery overnight with a 3-pin cable, and that's really reassuring. It just means no matter where I am, as long as I can get the connection out of a window, as I've done here, to the front of the car from a 3-pin plug, I can top up the power. And that's why we don't see all the cars at petrol pumps or fuel charge points. Okay, that's 3 lights that come on here, which they weren't there before, telling me it's there. So my understanding is I just pull this out, which is what I've done, put the connector back on, which is very easy to do, shut the charge point, and that's it. And then I'll wind up the cable. In all the manual that they warn us about is keeping this thing clean, and you've got a cap here. I can put the cap on the end, and that makes sure it stays clean and no dirt gets into the connector.
That is the first time I charged the car. Despite my trepidations, it was remarkably easy. First I set the car to how full I wanted the battery, 50% here. Then the second thing I did was plug in the 3-pin plug into the house socket. The third thing was I set the current that I wanted to charge the car at. I used 10 amps. And last, I then plugged the cable into the vehicle and went to bed. This gave me a huge amount of confidence. Now I need to find a fast charger and see if I can get that to work. In the email this morning, I received my service plan documents from Kia, and it says your service plan agreement with Clark's of Kidderminster. Dear Mr. Ratchet, thank you for purchasing your service plan from Clark's Kidderminster. Please find enclosed your welcome pack document, which contains the details of your agreement. If you have any questions you want to ask about the service plan, please contact EMAC, this number and this email. And what I find interesting about this is I paid for a 3-year service plan, but if I go and look at the manual, so if I look at the all new Kia Niro owner's manual, in here it tells us that scheduled maintenance service, normal maintenance schedule for Europe, and it says the number of months car driving distance, whichever comes first. So it says the number of months is 24 months is the scheduled maintenance, or 20,000 miles, or 30,000 kilometers. So I just don't understand why I'm being given something else that isn't in line with the maintenance manual. Surely the manual is what it's all about. It doesn't quite add up to me. And yet, when I look at the service plan that's been sent to me by Clark's, it's giving me first service, 10,000 miles, or August 23rd. I don't understand why the manual's telling me one thing and Clark's have sold me this service plan. Anyway, I've sent them an email asking them for an explanation because I don't understand it. Anyway, we'll see what their response is. Tesco's supermarket chain has been incredibly supportive of electric vehicle users by installing chargers at many of their stores. Their 7 kilowatt hour chargers are free to use. These are 3 times faster than the 3-pin socket we use at home. let's see how I get on here. So it's arrived here at Tesco and we're going to charge the car for the first time.
Well, you know about you've got to unlock the car 3 times before you pull the plug out, don't you?
So where do you stick it first? In here or in there first?
It don't make a difference.
Doesn't matter.
You're lucky if you can see it's charging, you go green.
Okay. Goes green.
Okay. You'll be the blind leading the blind, mind.
You sound as though you know what you're doing.
I
the
wish.
learn.
I was the other one, and a bloke come across from over there. He said, "Could you have trouble?"
So at the end, I've set it to charge for about 3 hours. Do you just unplug it?
Yeah.
And so when you've had enough, you just unplug.
I said, "You just have a trickle charge."
Yeah.
I'm in there an hour, and I get about 25% charge.
Yeah.
You get a trickle charge, but it keeps you going there. Fuel economy wise, it's pretty marvellous.
That is. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Sorry.
Really appreciate your help. I hit the jackpot with you being here. Thank you.
Well, I did exactly the same. When I come here, I didn't know. I had to buy that special.
Did you?
And I had one of the old gas ones, you know?
No, like my wife. Take care. The gentleman I was at the charger with was talking about getting one of those modern things that his old thing used to run on steam, and he was talking about a modern phone. And the reason for that is you need to use an app to access the charge point. Tesco's use PodPoint. ZapMap actually allows us to go and have a look at all the chargers all over the place, and these are the chargers all over the country, and they're literally, I suspect, thousands of them. So if you're going on a journey, you can plan your journey and you can actually work it out, and we'll cover that later when we go on the longer trip. But at the moment we had to go to PodPoint and it loads up, and what you then have to do, it shows your location on the map, and you then have to decide where you're going to go. Let's go to Tesco, and it shows you it's no cost for it, and it tells you it's a 7 kilowatt charger. So if I click on this again, it tells me one's charging and the other one is available. So if I was in Tesco going to the charge point, this spot would be available, and each one has a unique name, and I would then click on here, and then there's one here that's charging, but I'd be into this berth here, and I'd then need to click on here, and that's telling me it's confirmed. So that's the car charging. You can see it there. And looking on here, the gentleman's just told me that because this is on, it's charging, and that's us. Yes, it's telling me it's charging. Remaining time 5 hours. Don't know if it 6.3 kilowatt, 6.4 kilowatt charge. Oh well, that's progress for us. So it's us now going into Tesco to do some shopping. The first highway legal serial production all-electric car was produced by Tesla Motors in 2008. It used lithium-ion battery cells, and it was the first production all-electric car to travel more than 320 kilometers or 200 miles per charge. Well, we've been for a walk and come back, went into the Tesco store and bought some lunch. So I'm going to plug it 3 times. 1, 2. So we've taken the charge from 36% to 67%, so that's 31% charge. It's roughly a third of the battery, so that's about 20 kilowatts. 20 kilowatt hours gives us about an extra 100 miles of driving. here we are. Just 12 years ago, in December 2010, the Nissan Leaf became the first modern all-electric zero tailpipe emission 5-door family hatchback to be produced for the mass market from a major car manufacturer. A year later, it was estimated there were almost 479,000 electric vehicles on the world's roads. The world's two largest markets were the United States with 14,000 units sold and France with 2,200 units. By December 2012, a year later, Tesla had sold 2,450 Roadsters in over 30 countries. Having spent 3 hours yesterday putting in about 20 kilowatts of electricity, it got me thinking, because 20 times 27p is about £5.40. And I thought 3 hours, that's quite a lot of effort to save £5.40. So what I then did was a quick calculation to try and get an understanding of how much it costs to run the electric vehicle against, say, a diesel vehicle. So the battery of the Kia is 64 kilowatts. And if I was to fill that up from zero at 27p, which is our current electricity price, that would give me £17.28. My car average at the moment, the way I've been driving it, I haven't been driving it that long, a few hundred miles, is about 4.5 miles per kilowatt hour. So if I multiply 64 kilowatt, the full battery, by 4.5, it gives me a range of 288. Now if we look at a diesel car vehicle, I googled it and it said 10 miles per litre on average. I'm sure there's some that do more and some that probably do less. And I then divided that into the 288, and that's 28.8 litres. And currently diesel is £1.80 at the local garage. So that times £1.80 is £51.84. So £51.84 compared to the £17.28 if I just charge it with normal electricity that we've got here at the house. And therefore, as a percentage, electric versus diesel, I've divided the electric cost by the diesel, multiplied by 100, and therefore the electric vehicle costs to run it is about a third the cost of running a diesel. And that has given me an idea, and it all stemmed from the fact that I spent 3 hours yesterday in Tesco trying to save some money, and I worked out at the end of it I didn't save a huge amount. So I'm still trying to come to terms with the strategy of how to charge the vehicle, etc. There's one other calculation I'd like to do. With the smart meter and Octopus Go, I can charge my car with off-peak electricity. So doing the calculation again, 64 kilowatts at 7p is £4.48 to fully charge the battery. So now comparing this with the diesel, £4.48 divided by the cost, the equivalent cost of diesel, £51.84, gives me fuel cost for the charging the electric vehicle as 8% or 8.6% of the cost of diesel fuel. You've got to remember, on top of that, there's the annual service costs of the diesel, and also you pay car tax. In 2014, the world's top-selling all-electric cars were Nissan Leaf with 61,500, Tesla Model S with 31,000, about half that, BMW i3 with 16, which is about half of Tesla's quantity, followed by Renault Zoe, and deliveries from first-generation Kias from South Korea occurred in that year too. Unlike a petrol or diesel car, when you add 10 litres of fuel into the tank, you have 10 litres available to power your car. This is not the case for an electric car, where there is energy lost in the charging process. So I googled around to try and find an explanation, and here I've got how much energy is lost when charging an EV battery. A rough expectation is that your EV may use as much as 12 to 15% more energy than what you add to the battery. Some energy is written off to what's known as transmission loss. Some is converted to heat, some is used to keep the battery at the right temperature during charging. So I wanted to see how much loss we were getting when we charged our Kia Niro, and now I'll show you what I discovered. I put this device on, I set it for 10 amps, and on here I've got a meter which is telling me how many kilowatt hours I've used. So that tells us 17.19 kilowatt hours was on this charger. Be interesting to see what the car shows me as being used. And have a look at the battery. And it tells us it's 49%. This is showing us 17.1 kilowatt hours. I've been to the car, we charged it from 28%. I set it to 50%, but it actually went to 49%. Take 49% away from 28%. This is 21% actual charge, 64 kilowatt hour battery in the car. 21% of 64 gives me 12.86 kilowatt hours. In fact, this is actually telling me we used 17. In this example, the transmission loss is 33%, more than double the 15% mentioned on Google. Is that because of my slow charge rate? Is that due to the battery temperature? I don't know. I'll do more digging to try and understand this loss better. Tomorrow we're heading off on our long drive and to Norfolk from South Wales. And so therefore I'm going to go to Zap Map. Okay, so if I click on the map, that's giving me the various charge points, and I want to travel from South Wales across to Norfolk, and I see over here on the left hand side here I can put in routes. My start point NP, okay, and destination, it's got my vehicle in here, Kia Niro EV, range 268 miles. Yeah, I'm going to go to show all charges. Let's see what happens. Okay, so it's now given me my route, so I'm going to go roughly halfway. Okay, and it's now showing me the charges. So let's just click on that charger there. And what is it telling me? It's Motor Rugby Services. There are 12 chargers there, connected chargers. Clicking the info. Okay, it's 50p a kilowatt hour. So Motor Rugby Services is an option. And it's telling me it's 114 miles and it's 112 minutes. Let me just click on one of these other ones, and okay, that's telling me it's 201 miles after 205 minutes in the journey. That's too far. So okay, and this is Costa Cransley, and that's telling me 137 miles. I'll have 49% charge left in the vehicle, but there's only one charge point there. Welcome Break Cawley, 8 charges. I think we should stop at Motorway Rugby Services. Put them in my sat-nav, so that's the first place we're going to stop.
Today we're setting off for Norfolk, and it's our first long drive. And I've just plugged the car in to take it up from 80% to 100% power, and I thought it was going to take about 2 hours, but I just wanted to show you. Here it is, and it's telling me it's charging, and it's going to take 3 hours 10 minutes, which is fine. And that'll take us to the back of 11, and we're aiming to leave around about 12:30. They say don't keep the battery with full power except for when you need it for a long journey, and this is us charging it up for the long journey.
In early 2020, the Tesla Model 3 surpassed the Nissan Leaf to become the world's best-selling electric car ever, with more than 500,000 total units sold by March of that year. A year later, in June 2021, the global sales of the Tesla Model 3 passed the 1 million milestone, the first electric car ever to do so. It says 278 miles in the battery, ready for the trip. I think it's about 230 miles or something like that. It's on the show. This is the first long drive we've done, and we've been driving now for 2 hours, and the average is 4 miles per kilowatt hour. I find it quite interesting. We hit a period of congestion congested traffic, and it was so much easier in terms of you're not having to change gear all the time and engage your clutch, etc. The other thing I noticed was that the consumption of kilowatts to miles improved in terms of we were driving slowly and all I had to do was touch the pedal and or bring the pedal up to stop, and so much easier than all that engine idling. It's worth just looking at the battery and how much charge we've got in there, and that's telling us we've got 60%. So if I take it from 60 to 80% on the fast charger, that'll be good, and it does no harm with that. So we're going to pull in now into the next stop and hopefully get a small top-up charge while we have our lunch and cup of tea, and then we'll head on. We don't need this charge. We can get to our destination in one go, but as we're stopping, we may as well put a little bit of extra electricity. Charge stations are not new. Thomas Edison built a charging station for electric vehicles in 1904. Since the first appearance of electric vehicles in the mid-19th century, there has been a need for electric vehicle charging technology. The first electric vehicles had disposable batteries, and technology for charging was replacing dead batteries. Also, the main problem at that time, until the early 20th century, many homes were without electricity, and that meant it was impossible to charge the vehicle at home. Electrification at home meant that electric vehicles would be more accessible to the public. This would mean more and more people could buy and use electric vehicles. At the beginning of the 20th century, 38% of automobiles in the USA were powered by electricity. These cars could charge either with batteries in the vehicle or when the battery was removed from the vehicle and charged at another place and then mounted back in the vehicle again. So plug in your car. That's it. Lights are on. These chargers are grid-served chargers. There's no need to download an app or sign up for membership. So all I have to do is park up and plug the car in to activate the charger. I had set the car system to take an 80% charge. The charger automatically communicates with the car to understand the maximum charge and the speed of charge the car can handle. Once the charger has acknowledged the car, the next thing it will do is to tap the contactless credit card. You'll hear a beep, and after which your car will start charging. The screen will immediately display the time of your charging session, the real-time status of your car's battery, and the amount of energy your car battery is receiving.
What's it say now?
Return plug.
Looks like return plug.
That's it there.
Just let it.
Plug connected. Please wait.
Yep.
Please pay. Return plug.
Doesn't sound good.
Do you think it's the card or do you think it's...
I honestly don't know.
You're a help.
You can try a different card.
There is a phone number on the side of the charger I decided to call as I was having problems. I got through very easily. The lady at the end tried to connect me for a free session but was unsuccessful. Nevertheless, it was brilliant being able to speak to someone. I moved the car to a different charger and it worked. All very simple. The motto is make sure I go to a charger in the future that is working.
So what I've done here, the DC charger I've set to 80% maximum, and the energy at the moment is 59%. The top one we couldn't use, and these are the other chargers all sitting here, and the Tesla ones are at the end. This is probably the best organized charge facility we've seen. It looks a pretty new place. This guy's been waiting for a bit of time. He's got himself a slot now. Time to visit the loos. They're the Tesla chargers, and I think Tesla's missing out by not opening up to everybody else. And I'll swing around here this is everybody else, and some of these chargers aren't in use. Just wanted to see how much I've got in it, and the fast chargers tell me I've got 10 minutes remaining as we eat our lunch. Then I'll just pull this car back and give the space to somebody else, and there's good space behind the car chargers for me to do that. One of the great things here is there are picnic benches, so we can actually stop and have our lunch right beside the chargers. There goes the taxi. I've actually parked it up over here behind the chargers, which allows somebody else in. And as you can see, there are plenty of chargers available now. The top one is the one I had trouble with, and all these others are now available, and the Teslas are looking quite busy down the end. So that's us charged, and nice to see this petrol pump looking pretty empty.
Keep right, then turn left.
As all the other charging spots are pretty busy for the electrical lot. So we've charged up 80% in the battery, more than we need, and we're heading on back onto the
motorway. Turn left towards A426, then slide right onto A426.
Here we are in Wollaston, and I'd hoped that maybe we could get a charge from the window. The cottage runs along the end, but the owner leaves their vehicle there, so there's no way I can get a charge. So the next strategy is, where do we go to?
We were on holiday for a week. We ended up using the Tesco charge points, as they were free for the rapid chargers, and for the high-speed chargers there were 27p per kilowatt hour, basically the same price as we pay for our electricity at home. Once again, thank you Tesco. In summary, what do we do when away from our home charger on holiday? There were plenty of chargers about. The prices varied considerably, from as much as £1 per kilowatt hour to 28p or free for the slower charger at Tesco. Ideally, what I'd like to see for holiday makers is the accommodation providers think about those guests of theirs who have electric vehicles, and at least as an absolute minimum they should give them 3-pin access points. Secondly, the visitor attractions such as stately homes or outdoor centres where guests are going to spend a large part of their day, these could have reasonably priced charge facilities. After 6 weeks, what about my first electric car? I'm really pleased with it. It's not difficult to charge. I love the fact I can charge it from home. I'm definitely saving money on fuel costs, electric versus diesel, while also causing considerably less damage to our planet. I love the one-pedal driving. It is so much simpler than worrying about clutches and gears. I'm really pleased I've made the switch to the Kia Niro. I look forward to driving it in the years ahead.